So here we are. We're going to call the meeting to order. We just have two quick things.
Sure.
The first thing is to approve the meeting minutes of February 20th. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Second.
Thank you, Chris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. The second thing is to accept the meeting minutes of March 6th for review.
Moved.
Thank you, Mo.
Second?
Thank you, Sue. Oops, no, Sue. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, now we're ready for our budgets. The first is the police department, if you don't mind. Oh, if everybody could silence their cell phones, that would be helpful first. If you could introduce yourself to the committee, a bunch of new people and things, so that would be helpful.
My name is Tim Nixon. I am the police chief. I enjoy rescue dogs, coaching, hiking, camping, and walks on the beach.
Pina coladas?
I've been pina coladas. I've been with the town going on 21 years, and I am just excited and happy to be here.
Excellent. We're happy to have you. Let's see if we can start with your budget for the police department, 2100, please. We usually just go through changes.
Sure. So again, two categories were small changes, but they weren't big money. It was more or less because we had a changeover in administrative assistant, so that salary she fits where she should be in the pay scale was less than the secretary that had left. The major changes of note where the increases are, you'll see permanent salaries went up. A lot of that's due to contractual obligations, education incentives, step raises, and in the raise that they had bargained for in their contract. Further all the way down, you'll see I think the most significant bump will be my service contracts and infrastructure. That's kind of our operations network. So that's our RMS system, which is our records management. That's our dispatch CAD, which is how we run our computer systems. And unfortunately, that's all service-based and that's contract-based through them. And like everything else in the world, they've all bumped up their contracts. So, I have to stay with these contracts. Otherwise, we'd have to go whole hog and come in with another company. So, unfortunately, those were the increases.
Okay. Can we talk about the one permanent salaries?
Sure.
What was that one?
So we have a younger population that are now hitting some step raises.
Okay.
We're also looking to add our employment staff. Okay, and with that, it's needed, but more of this is we have guys going from no degree to master's degrees. So
Okay.
in that contract, that bumps up their salary because of the education incentive that's written into the contract.
Okay.
We have guys hitting step raises. They're hitting that like 5th and 7th year.
Okay.
So that ups their step raise as well.
Okay. So we're not adding people.
Well, I'm looking to add one.
We are adding.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a regular police officer?
Regular
or-
patrolman and based on the growth of the town, and last year alone, we had 800 extra more calls than we had the previous year. So I reasonably can't see that anyone doesn't look at the growth in the town. I think we need it.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you speak to overtime?
So general overtime? So
Yeah.
general overtime, we are a subscribing member of Sunlight. So general overtime is anything not accounted for in scheduling. So the scheduling would be your holiday, your vacation, your personnel time like that. So general overtime would be detective overtime, holdovers, when there's events and I gotta put bike officers on, Sunlight callouts where our SWAT guys are responding out of town to that commitment. That's where the general overtime comes from. So it's essentially overtime generated outside of scheduling.
So, outside occurrences that not planned for.
Not planned for.
Okay.
And again, it's not scheduling. So if a vacation day is voided and we have to fill it, that would come from clear the vacation. But this is detectives coming in early. This is cases. This is semlet callouts. Funerals, parades, everything like that where I have to put extra guys on. That's where I pull that from.
Okay.
Can I ask a question that's related to the personnel sheets? There's a line that says open sergeant.
So right now, we have a sergeant position, Sergeant Winkler just retired. So I'm looking to fill, I want to keep the sergeant positions staffed. That's only gonna be the difference, again, we're gonna promote within. That's the difference between what that first step sergeant pay would be on top of whatever this person's regular line is.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, we have uniforms and equipment.
So uniforms and equipment, again, back to my tale of woe, everything is going up. We do have to hire, so for instance, this year, just the ballistic vests alone for 2 new people, that's $1,800 right in that. So if we're looking to hire, which I am, that increment is definitely needed just to outfit them.
Okay. In the dues and meetings,
So our SEMLEC participation, Mass Chiefs, Plymouth County Chiefs, all of those membership dues have also increased.
okay. Okay, and then, I think, did we talk about the RMS system already?
So yeah, the RMS system, that's our records management, and that's pretty much our entire, that's the bones of our department. That's where all our policies are stored, our orders, everything that you would need to, if something were to happen and you guys are gonna replace our entire administration. This is how brand new people learn what the rules are. This is how we operate, and that's kind of, I mean, that's one of the things that we needed, but you're also talking
Policies and procedures, or?
policies and procedures, memos, internal stuff like that.
Okay.
And then IMC, which is our CAD system, that also went up. So our dispatch system, our computer system, our networking system, our case tracking, that's all in that line.
Okay.
Is any of that stored in the cloud?
We have, so our IMC, nope, it's stored on our server. We've been very lucky. A lot of the stuff that we've got, I'm afraid of the cloud.
I
So
understand.
I like keeping everything internal. We have the servers on site and we're tied into the server at the school. So a lot of our backup is through the school.
So there's redundancy.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions on this police budget?
No?
Okay, great, thank you.
My
The
big one.
next is the canine control.
Let's see.
So canine control, it's gonna be an unknown for next year. I'm hoping that Jenny rebids. Her contract ends June 30th. It's been out to bid. But there's not a lot of heavy lifting out of this, and in talks with her, I feel that she is gonna rebid. There
Okay.
will be some costs, but if it's not exactly this, it's manageable, and I can work with it. So
Okay,
this is one of the best deals going, so I would like to
Yeah.
continue with it.
okay,
Has she hinted otherwise?
She hasn't, well, she is a business owner. She has hinted that when we get down to it, we gotta talk about the next contract moving forward, and I kinda told her where I'm at. And then, but again, I think we're talking, if there is a change, it's gonna be incremental, and I can absorb it elsewhere if I had to, so.
Okay. right.
I'm just hoping she bids, and then we go from there.
Okay.
it
Thank
works pretty well the way you have been doing it, it seems like.
It has, and I hate to use it's a warm shoe. Everyone knows the rules, everyone knows who's involved, everyone knows everyone stays in their lane. We finally have the process down. It's been really user-friendly, and I don't,
Yeah.
I wanna keep it that way.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay,
If it
fair
works.
enough. Any questions on this one? I think you're off the hook.
Thank you.
You think I'm off the hook? That's not an affirmative. All right.
You're off the hook.
Thank
There
you
we
very
go.
much for
Have a good
coming.
night, everybody.
We
Thank you.
appreciate
Get
it.
some rest.
Yeah, good work. Have a good night.
So,
They may be meeting. I don't know what time they were meeting.
The CPC. Do you wanna do a small one?
Sure.
While we
If
wait?
that's okay with everybody.
Let me flip to that part of
We're
my
going down.
packet here. I can find it. Let's see, the first one I see is the Historical Commission,
You want,
6910, or do you wanna do moderator?
your choice, I mean, whatever you guys. Again, I'm sorry, I'm told that some of them might not be in order.
No. Do you mind doing them in the order? That way I can flip them.
Yep, so Historical Commission first.
Yes, first,
So
yeah.
Historical Commission is just level funded at the same number year over year.
Okay, any questions on this one? The next I see is the benefits.
So benefits, that one is still a little bit of a budget work in progress. So a couple of items, I'll wait, Jim and Mary are still finding.
Sorry.
That's okay, it's okay.
Benefits there.
Hopefully they're all, everybody's is in the same order, no?
Yeah, there.
I just would like to mention, I found it before Jim.
Noted for the record.
Thank you.
How you doing, Mo?
Great.
Did you find it?
You good?
Okay.
Well, I had looked at it before.
Okay.
So benefits budget, it's our largest non-operating, non-school budget. We have our contributory retirement. That does not fund our local, like it doesn't fund someone like me. All of us is self-funding because we pay more than employees that, from before, for legacy employees. Anyway, that's state mandated. It goes up 8.25% per year. The negative is it's a big fat number. The positive is that by 2033, 2034, it's supposed to be fully funded. So we'll see a majority of that actually disappear.
Sounds a
So-
lot closer than it used to.
Yeah, I was
So-
gonna ask you, when's it run out? It's pretty
Yeah.
much coming
So,
up.
in theory, we might actually save $2 to $3 million in that line at that time, but obviously there's still 6 or 7 years.
Okay,
The other lines is at Maya, which is our workers' comp insurance. I have budgeted 5%. Historically, that's been about what we get rated at.
okay.
However, this year, we have seen a trend that insurance has been higher.
Hmm.
And so, I have not been rated yet. For us, we're late in our budget season, but understand that all of our policies, renew on July 1st. So think about it, if your house insurance, or your car insurance, if it started on July 1st, in March, you probably don't know what your premium is.
Right.
So we'll push for it over the next couple of weeks, but it's a little bit of a guessing game.
And if it doesn't get spent, it goes back to free cash?
1,000%. The other is the health insurance. You'll see that the health insurance line I budgeted at 4%. However, we turned these in January, and we just got rated, and it's at 7. So that'll go up. How I will tell you, we're part of 26 other communities in the Mayflower group. So 27 of us, we do have some buying power, and state GIC went up over 10. So we feel like we're in pretty good shape in comparison to others. But again, it's still a 7% increase. The last item on there, sick time buyback, I went up on that because we've had a lot of retirees this year, and we have more coming for next year. And so right now, I'm not sure I have enough to cover between this year and next, and obviously it's all contractual and by bylaw. So I've got to retweak that over the next couple of weeks as well. Tim mentioned, the police chief mentioned, like Mike Winkler just retired. He's a long-time sergeant. He's at the higher end of the range. But we have 3 DPW retirees this year. We have some secretaries that are retired and are retiring. So you got to pay for it. So that's most of the increases in the benefits line.
Okay.
So that I'm just letting you know in advance that what you see right now is going to be a little bit different, because in 2 weeks, the selectmen on Wednesday night will vote. I'll present a balanced budget to them. The selectmen will vote on the budget. And the following night, I turn in that budget to you guys. And you will see all the budgets at that point. And that benefits budget will change as I make these amendments to it between now and then.
Okay.
Also keep in mind that because there's property insurance in here and there's health insurance in here, I will then backtrack to the water department You might remember I said that during the water department budget.
Mhm.
So I will backtrack to that budget, and then I'll have to make those changes as well to reflect the real numbers.
Okay.
So you'll see that at your next meeting.
Understood.
Thank you. Any questions on this one? No. Come on down.
Oh.
We're ready for you. If you don't mind introducing yourself, that would be great.
Cheryl Cambria with the Community Preservation Committee.
Okay, thank you, welcome.
Thank you. As you can see from my memo, the Veterans Affairs is asking for another, some more money. I made a mistake on this. It's actually 5,000. It's not 10,000. So it's a continuation of what they've been doing over the last couple years, I believe, where they're doing an inventory of all the cemeteries in town and making a list of all the veterans, and then they're going to be putting plaques
Great.
on the stones. Down below is a list of the money that will go into the buckets this year. We get, as you know, we get money from the state and from residents, and 10% of that has to be put into, I always call them buckets, and it's that 10% for each like open space can only be used for open space, and then the rest goes into the reserve fund. So that's what those numbers are.
So just one request this year?
Yeah, one project, yeah.
Okay.
So hopefully in the future.
Is there a need? Are there other projects?
Well, I know like the cemeteries, that was an ongoing project. There is the fish ladder that I think needs to be completed. So I just made contact with the new DPW person, so I'm not sure if it would be him or the assistant that maybe I can get onto my committee. So, yeah.
Okay. Any questions on this one? No. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Next would be Southeast Regional, but they're not here yet.
There's a bunch of people from the school.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Gathering.
Thank you. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
Who was with Mark last night? Lady was with him. Not Mark, the fellow from Southeast.
Mark's the business manager, and I believe who was with them is our, no, Holly wasn't there. No, I believe it's our Southeastern Regional Rep, Jessica Alwood.
Okay, all right. Great.
Hey, come on in.
Are you ready for us?
You can come in.
We have Southeast Regional next, but they're not here yet. Should we wait for him and do some of the smaller ones, or this one's gonna take a long
I don't wanna
time?
jump. I don't wanna jump. Sure.
Okay.
You're afraid of the front row?
Well, no, we'll move up.
It's like church. It's like church.
School.
Mark, I left a donation there, just a couple office supplies that I picked up. I mean, school supplies that I picked up. Yeah, you can take them with you, in case they come in handy. So I think we're gonna do a couple of the smaller budgets, because Southeast Region was on, and you guys are gonna take a little longer, so I wanna be respectful where we had him scheduled sooner, if that's okay. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Southeastern Regional just
Oh,
walked in.
oh, she just walked
Yeah,
in.
she's
Come
here.
on down. We're ready for you. Yeah,
Yes.
Do you have a presentation by chance?
I do, yes, we do.
Are you able to put it up on the screen?
I can't.
I don't know if she has that one loaded. Let me just check.
Okay.
If not, would you like me to, Holly, would you like me to get you a paper copy?
Yes, please.
All right, why don't I run upstairs and get you one?
Okay.
Just hold on one second.
Sure.
Okay, great. Sorry,
Thanks,
I'm waiting
Dave.
for my assistant superintendent. He has our copies, so
Oh,
I'll apologize for that.
is he
He's
coming?
also coming.
Oh, he is? Should we wait for him?
Yep, you don't mind.
I'm sorry?
Do you want to take someone else first and then come back to us?
Do you know if he's like on his way or?
I don't know because
Okay.
I wasn't able to get a text message to go out.
Small ones.
Why don't I just
Hi,
pick you
Susan.
up?
How are you?
Would
Nice
you
to
like
see you.
one or would you
Okay,
like two?
2 would be wonderful.
okay. All right. So we'll wait. till Dave comes back. Sorry.
I can go on with Mark if that's better for everybody.
How many of these do you have to do?
9.
9?
Well, it depends. Some of you, some of the towns have us come for Board of Selectmen and FinCom. Some have a joint meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Some don't ask us to come, depending on the circumstances of the year. So
That's a grind.
it's okay. We enjoy getting out and seeing our communities. And it's a grind for everybody this time of year, isn't it?
Yeah.
At least the weather's getting better, slowly.
Definitely is.
Pass that around to give to Dave.
Thank you.
How long have you been with the school system?
I've been it's my 3rd year superintendent, but I've been with the school system 11 years.
Wow.
So I was the assistant superintendent of human resources before that.
Which one?
Okay, great.
Human resources.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you've been there.
I've been there, yeah. So for a while.
What's the STEM edition?
So we're building a STEM edition. Actually, we'll be sending out some invitations to all the municipal officials. And it's opening, it won't fully open for students until September of 26. But it's a robotics, automation, mechatronics,
Fantastic.
cybersecurity and networking, and it's the last tiny little piece of buildable land that we have.
Yeah.
Even though we have a very large campus, it's mostly protected wetland, so there's no place else for us to grow. So we'll get a little bump in enrollment, but that's really it.
That's
So,
pretty
and you won't see
exciting.
that until FY27.
Yeah.
It's a great offering, though.
So
It is.
robotics and what else?
Robotics, automation, it'll tie into our precision machine, and advanced manufacturing. We just got a big grant to retool one of our shops for offshore wind, so it'll tie in with that as well. So it'll offer students a lot of new programming.
That's
so.
really exciting. Yeah, I know the renewable energy industry is really looking for people to work in that industry.
Absolutely.
So that's great news to hear that
Yeah,
there's some focus on education there.
absolutely. So
Is
we're
around
very
that-
excited.
Around that business for a long time, back when you'd give a machinist a block of steel and say, make me this part from this drawing,
Yeah.
they would do it.
Yeah,
Now, you have to be a programmer and the machine does it.
they're much
Better.
more complicated.
Yeah.
They do. But you know what? It still takes the human being to really double check the quality and the standard deviations.
Yeah, well,
You
that's
still
true.
can't leave everything to.
Oh, no.
Right.
Yeah. But
But you can see rows of injection molding machines with this one person up above and even the files come from out of the country to the machine and it starts up.
mhm.
It's amazing.
That is
It is.
amazing.
It is.
God
We got a
knows
chance earlier this year to visit some of our machining
Yeah.
shops that employ our students, and the technology is amazing, and the
It
things
is.
that they do is just incredible. So
That's great.
thank you very much. If Mark shows up, he'll get a second copy. So.
I know I went to the open house with my boys. They're in 5th grade now, and they saw there was a video game. Well, I shouldn't say this in front of the school.
All right. Right off.
I think
Something
they're
about a video
aware.
game-
I think they're aware.
Video
Yeah.
game club. So now they're like
Oh, yeah.
all into Southeast. I
Yes.
think it's the best school ever.
Well, so do I. Thank you so much. I think all our schools are pretty fantastic.
I
but-
see the enrollment's really climbed since 2000. You have the
Yeah.
trend here since 16, 38 to 78.
We
That's
know
our,
why,
big.
right?
Our enrollment has really gone up, and we've used a lot of grant funding from the state over the last, say, 8 years to really make use of every square inch that we have. But like I said, we have one tiny piece of buildable land left that will, in FY27, probably boost our total enrollment by about 36 students.
Wow.
But that's really, we're going to be kind of capped
Yeah.
at that point. So
Yeah.
we anticipate after that we'll start to see enrollment level
Level
off
off,
just
yeah.
because of capacity.
Can you take like parking lot space if you
Oh.
had to, but
Parking lots. Yeah, so we, for the first year ever,
There he
had
is.
to, come on in. For the first year ever, we had to limit parking privileges to seniors only.
It's amazing.
And it has been a very emotional experience for many of us, so.
Well,
So I will not be taking any parking lots, I assure you, to build on. That is not in the plan. I barely survived this year with taking a few spaces. So, again, thank you for having us. This is my Assistant Superintendent, Mark Morris. I think many of you know Mark.
Thank you.
You know, I do want to start by just saying that we recognize the context of what many of our towns and local school systems are facing this year in terms of budgeting. We recognize that about 2/3 of school districts across the state were held harmless or had, you know, minimal enrollment or flat enrollment, and how impactful that is to our local school districts. And so as we come here with our budget, we are committed once again to operating at net school spending, which means the minimum that we are required to spend by the state to educate our students. And so our budget is within those boundaries again this year. So you can see that our budget this year, the foundation budget, is $38.7 million. Of that, we received $24.5 million in state aid, leaving $14,188,183 in local assessments. And those are apportioned based primarily on enrollment within the school. In addition to that, we have a $2.3 million budget for transportation. The good news is that last year, that's what we had budgeted for transportation based on estimates we were getting from potential bidders. And the cost last year was actually down and reimbursement was up. So we used that transportation cost from last year and the reimbursement we've actually received to estimate our transportation for this year. And so you'll see that transportation is down versus last year at $779,000. To that, we add our capital expenditures, and we have for many years kept that total local assessment at $192,000. And this year we've done that by using some of our adult ed receipts. So we have a post-secondary program at Southeastern with about 150 adult students, give or take. And they pay tuition for their programs, and so we've used those receipts to bring down that assessment so that it stays at 192 for the total budget of 41,373. Now, on top of that, we add the payments on our bond. They have to be carried outside that budget number, but they all go in together. And so that total local assessment is 493,875. Our school committee is trying to put some money into an OPEB reserve fund, but again, that we don't assess that to the communities. That comes directly from our adult ed receipts. So this year's budget, total budget, including transportation, bonds, etc., is 5.3% over last year. Okay, any questions on that piece? All right, and if we look at student enrollment, you will see that since FY16, the enrollment in West Bridgewater has grown pretty steadily until you had 78 students this year. That's a small increase over last year of 3 students. And you do have 4.6% of the total enrollment at Southeastern. You go to the next page, you'll see the worksheet by member community. And you'll see West Bridgewater's minimum contribution, which is primarily driven by the enrollment, plus the net bond payment, the net transportation payment, the net capital cost payment, for a total FY26 assessment of $1,125,514. And that is a $117,000 increase over the previous year. On the next page, you will see that, once again, like I said, that we are operating at net school spending at the minimum foundation budget as required by statute. We always just include West Bridgewater's local school budget for your reference. And then the next couple of sheets are the worksheets for how the formula works for West Bridgewater and how it's calculated. And the final sheet is just the summary of our Chapter 70 aid, which is this year.
It's West Bridgewater.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
it's
just
West
for their-
Bridgewater.
yeah, just for-
Yeah, and it's just for your reference. All right. Any questions?
So I just had a quick one. You said the reimbursement cost went up. How come?
The reimbursement.
Your reimbursement for transportation costs went up?
So the reimbursement this year is actually, the cost is actually down versus last year.
How come?
Because last year we had estimated that we would be spending $2.3 million and our actual, we were in the process of bidding out the contract and the actual transportation cost came in lower. So, and then our reimbursement rate from the state, which is supposed to be 100%, but never is, was higher than anticipated. So those two things together combined to keep our
Lower.
transportation a little bit
Got it.
lower. This year, the governor has proposed a 95% reimbursement for regional transportation, which would be the highest we've seen it in a long time, and that would be very helpful for next year. So,
So if you see a legislator, senators, reps, let them know it's very important to the town, right, to keep that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Do we know how many students are planning to go from West Bridgewater?
Yeah, 78.
Oh,
78.
There's 78 there
Okay,
right
thought it
now.
was
What did it go up by 3, right?
It went up by 3.
Yep.
We received 1,280 applications for admission for the coming school year. And we can admit 420. So, you may or may not be aware that right now there is a push by the Department of Education to impose a blind admissions lottery on vocational schools. I would urge you to review that proposed regulation. When we run our simulated lotteries, so we've taken our actual data, run simulated lotteries, in every single case, 100% of cases, Brockton loses seats in the lottery, which means that those seats are going to our towns. And as you know, one extra student in West Bridgewater is very impactful to your budget. Right now, the use of selective criteria tends to even things out. So about 30% of kids from Brockton who apply get in, about 30% of kids from West Bridgewater get in. If we go to a random lottery, I have some concerns about the potential for volatility, much more volatility than we normally see in enrollment. So I would encourage you to take a look at that legislation or regulation proposal and if you choose to let your voice be heard on that issue.
That's the State Department.
Is there a time frame on that
Yes, April the 18th is the deadline for public comment.
for next year?
Yeah, and if they accept the regulations, they would go into effect for the admission cycle that begins in September for the students starting in September 26th.
Now, I have a question. Is this the Massachusetts Department of
Yes.
Education? Okay,
Yes,
because the news today wasn't good about,
it was not.
no, so,
It was not. It was not.
I
okay.
thought you already had a
But that's
blind
across the board.
process.
We do not.
That
Oh, okay.
affects everybody.
It does.
Yep. So. All right.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well,
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your
Oh,
time.
thank you.
And
Thank
we
you
very-
so much for
Sorry I was
coming.
late. I thought it was a little later.
Oh, no, you're
all right.
good. We were a little early.
Oh,
late.
okay, good, all right.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
Thank
much.
you.
We
Good to
appreciate
see
it.
you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening. Now you can come on down.
So Mark, your choice, the presentation's obviously up there. Everybody has a paper copy.
Okay.
So if you want to refer to that or your paper copy, whatever you prefer.
Hang on, let me see if I can get, there we go. I just need to figure out how to advance the slides, 1 second. Let's see. There we go. So just press. Way. All right. You all set? All right.
Sure.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. We're going to share some slides, share some information with you. then certainly I want to allow time for questions that you may have on our budget. I want to start with some of the positives and some of the thank yous in terms of what we've added over the years. We're very thankful to add positions in our school district that have really helped students and staff, and I believe entire community. For example, we've added adjustment counselors at both the middle, senior high school and at the elementary level. We've added a part-time school psychologist at the middle, senior high school who predominantly does most of the testing. We've added classroom teachers in elementary grades to help right-size our classrooms to go from four teachers to 5 teachers when appropriate. A big program for us is our sub-separate programs for special education students at the elementary schools. We've added one at each of the elementary schools. This has required staffing, but the net result is a tremendous savings to the school and the town because we're able to keep more kids in district rather than sending them out.
Are we able to quantify like how many kids we kept in that we would otherwise have had to
We have
send out?
numbers, yeah, absolutely. For example, this year, and I can't say that all of these students would be going out, but we're moving from the Spring Street to the Roselle McDonald, I believe 5 or 6 students who quite possibly they may be in or they could have gone out depending on their needs. And we'll talk a little bit more about our district tuition and transportation in a second, but I think it's a big savings for us.
Okay.
Related services, which is OT, PT, speech and language, we've added both teachers or percentage of service providers, again, servicing our students with their growing needs, and our multilingual staff. We have gone up from when I started with 1 educator up to 4, who also serves as kind of a part-time coordinator of the program. We're mandated by law to provide a certain amount of time for each student, depending on their level of need. So we're meeting those needs, and what's nice is we're also meeting the needs of the families. We're better integrating them into our school and our community, which I think makes for a successful student.
How many students do we have in that program now?
There are about 68. That includes our EL students and our FELS, our formerly English language students.
Now,
So we're up a couple from last year.
Are they school choice kids, a lot of them, or
Nope,
not?
these are,
Mostly in
I would say,
town?
I think they're all West Bridgewater
Interesting. Yeah.
over the years. Okay, next is, we've talked about this a lot. I think it's just good to remind about special education. With special education, the students who are placed in these programs are appropriately placed for their needs, and it's done by a team decision. But a small percentage of our students are out of district, in our district placements, but it accounts for about 13% of our overall budget. This is not a number unique to West Bridgewater. You're going to find this pretty much in almost all communities. A couple of things to highlight are transportation costs range greatly from potentially $30,000 up to $88,000. That's what we budgeted for this year. And when you're looking at these ranges, we have set amounts for both transportation and for tuition, but this just provides you a range. If they're in a public program, such as programs at East Bridgewater and Bridgewater Raynham, you'll see the range of 45 to 55. If they're in one of our collaborative programs, Reeds or North River Collaborative, you'll see a slightly increase, mid-70s to about 100,000, and that's our non-public private schools, which have the most variation in cost. We're also seeing this year, a couple of years ago, we came with the 14% OSD increase, which was very unusual. Usually it's been capped at about 2 or 3%. One school this year has an increase of 33.4%. I reached out to the school, I've reached out to the office of the OSD, try to communicate with them to get some justification for that. But that's a $40,000 increase for us that we had to carry in our budget.
Do we have a lot of severely disabled children?
We do. We have some students who have never been in the public school. We have some students who need to be placed out after time in our schools, but the level of disabilities does range.
And what's the total number of students in like all of these programs?
In these programs, I believe it's 15 students.
15.
15 is the number.
Outside?
Outside.
How about in special needs kids?
Ooh, I believe our percent is around 11% of our students. So,
Would be-
about 140, 150 students. That's not a firm number. I can certainly find that information.
Yeah.
Now, these numbers change every year. We have students who age out of programs, and we
Right.
have students who move out of town. But we also have students who may change placements. We have students who go from a day program to a residential program. You'll see a great increase in cost of tuition, but you'll also see a decrease in some of the transportation for that. So again, very variable in our numbers. Another area of variability, and I'll show a couple slides on school choice, are our numbers in school choice. This shows some historical data for the number of students we've enrolled in school choice over the years. The 250 number is the number we carried for last year's or this current year's budget. Unfortunately, we're only able to enroll 228 this year, so we did create a budget deficit. But the flip side is we didn't want to overcrowd our schools, so we could have taken more, but it would have caused potential overcrowding at the elementary, or maybe even at the secondary level.
So sorry, Mark, you budgeted about 250, but then only took 238?
228,
Or
yes.
228, sorry. Okay, thank
That's for this year. Next year, we're budgeting 230.
you. Okay.
We feel with the 228, we're graduating 30 seniors. We feel we have more room than we did in past years at the middle senior high school. We have a lower than normal 7th grade this year. Our 6th grade's a little bit bigger, so we probably won't take any in the 7th grade. And we may look at siblings at the elementary level. But beyond that, we won't be adding due to the concern over overcrowding in the future.
When you say that, is the average, would you say 25 kids in every class?
No, we're a little bit lower than that now. We're probably around in the elementary level. We're probably low 20s. It's in the classes when we go down to 4, we would be up if we have 4 teachers, which we don't right now. We could, if we have 100 students, then we'd be up over 25 or around 25.
That's kind of, I hear that number a lot, 25 is what your optimum.
Yeah, we
Number would
strive
be-
for a little bit lower, but
Sure.
it's and we know districts are carrying more students than that. This slide will show our actual numbers, the dollar amounts associated with school choice. You'll see that just a few years ago we were over $1.5 million in school choice. We've decreased over the past 5 years, over 300,000. We're anticipating another decrease, potentially of another 450,000. So over the span of this graph, or over the 8 years, we're potentially looking at half of the amount for school choice. What that does is it means less students in the district from out of the district, but it also means less in our school contributions, which are high. The higher we can contribute with school contributions, the less that we need from the town. And this is the chart that will show that. You'll see that our school choice used to be just over 50% of our school contributions. This is the highest amount we've had during my tenure, and I believe it's the highest we've had for quite a while. This number of our school contributions represents 13% of our overall budget. We are showing a decrease in school choice and our special education grants. One of the things we're concerned about, and part of that is the news today, that we don't know if grants may
Federal, a
disappear.
lot of that's federal.
Title I could be a possibility in other grants. Title I, we hire tutors, so we don't hire full-time staff, so that wouldn't be a direct service loss. It would be a service loss, but it wouldn't be losing a teacher that's educating the students full-time. And we are seeing an increase in circuit breaker and our revolving accounts. Circuit breaker is money that comes back from the state. We're hoping that they fund at 75% over the threshold number. We're actually hoping that they pass legislation to get 90% of money coming back to the towns, which they should for expenses that we're putting out there. Their revolving accounts are our surround care, our athletic revolving accounts. So we're using more money than we have in the past. In essence, from our surplus or our savings.
Yeah.
Greg can explain a little bit more maybe about circuit breaker.
Yes, circuit breaker last year, I guess during this current year, we received over $700,000 reimbursement for circuit breaker, which is significantly more than we've ever received. which is good. Obviously, the cost of our out-of-district tuitions have also risen. We can use circuit breaker money for about $175,000 of it for transportation reimbursement, which is included in this budget. The remaining amounts need to be used for services that directly affect our special needs students. So the majority of it is really geared toward out-of-district tuition. So when you look at the budget, you'll see that between our federal grant, that is a 240 grant, and our circuit breaker state money, we are offsetting out-of-district tuitions by $800,000 for this budget. I feel like that's very aggressive, but we did have some funds built up, really flowing through from the COVID years in circuit breaker. So we are tapping into that significantly to help this budget.
What's the full bucket of money in that?
Well, it's, we have to spend $600,000 during fiscal year 25 of it. So I have to spend 100% of what I received the previous year.
Okay.
We had some small buildup from COVID, but I had to spend the full amount from the previous year in the current year. So I'm hoping at the end of this year, I can use it to balance a lot of the budget, that we do end up with maybe $300,000 to apply to fiscal year 26, helping that $800,000. And I'm also budgeting that we receive $600,000 from the state for fiscal year 26. That's a little bit lower than we received this year, but money is tight.
So you don't know what the circuit breaker is
No,
yet?
you don't
So how do you do your budget if
It's
you don't
hard.
know?
Estimate.
It's
I
estimated.
mean, what if it's over? What if you have an excess now?
Of excess of
More
circuit.
than you're depending?
Then we
it
can
would go
hold it.
into that
Does it go
revolving
back to the
account.
general fund or?
No.
No.
We can hold that for the next year. And if,
When
again,
there's
it's
less.
meant to be used if there are extraordinary expenses, some
Right.
move-in or things like that, changes in placement during the school year.
So that's like a little bit of a savings account, so to speak, but you can
little bit.
only keep it for like a
A year.
12-month period of
Right.
time?
But you would never be able to
And-
keep the full amount. I mean,
Yeah.
the special education costs are too high.
And
Yeah.
what happens if like you can't, you just don't use it all? Do you just give it up?
We will always do that.
Oh.
There will be no time that
Yeah.
I've ever let that.
And we're
not
always
be
spending,
used.
really spending that money through
I-
year after year.
Right, I have never had a year where I've been able to keep 100%
Yeah.
of like the previous years to roll it to this year.
So when you, so that helps to cover for, say, somebody who moves in that you didn't
Yes.
have in the budget, like if it goes to 16 students instead of 15,
Exactly.
or somebody who maybe was in a lower cost program that has to go to a higher cost that you just weren't aware of. That's kind of how it works.
Hopefully,
Okay.
and that's why it's with trepidation that I use so much circuit breaker money for the fiscal year 26 budget, because our reserve will be very small if some of those situations happen and
Yeah.
if we don't receive at least $600,000 from the
Mhm.
state.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense.
The,
Thank you.
you notice that school choice, we're budgeting 1.2 million, and this slide just shows that by reducing the 20 students, again, we're predicting or budgeting for 230 students down from the 250. If we could budget that full 250, that would be 1.3 million, which would then lessen the town appropriation. So that's a concern for us that we're not able to fill all those spots.
So the 20 that you're not filling per se, did you fill them with kids in town, or
No,
are they just empty spots?
we looked at some of the elementary grades, and we were at 104 students, 103 students, 99 students, and we were predicting organic enrollment from West Bridgewater students, and we did not want to take the chance of taking in a few more, even sprinkling 3 or 4 per grade,
Yeah,
because we know we can do 5 sections or 5 classes per grade. We can't do 6. We don't have the physical space in our in our buildings to put 6.
but you
So-
have pretty small class sizes, so there's some
There's a little wiggle room,
Room,
yeah,
right?
but once they're in through school choice, we own them.
Right,
So
but like
then
if
if
you
you got-
had a couple kids that moved into town, you could absorb them because the class
Yes.
sizes are
Yep, we could.
relatively
I mean,
small,
if-
right?
but for example, our fourth grade's 127 students.
Okay.
So
But
that's
divided by 5 teachers.
correct.
Now, is that why you recommended a reduction of one person, or was it
Yeah, well, in some different areas, yes,
So it's like-
potentially.
one teacher, or is that further along? in
We're
this?
looking for, we're definitely gonna address it.
And then the school committee pushed back on that, is it a different,
So we looked, we
you
looked
looked
at,
to reduce one
correct,
at 68,000, was it something?
62,000. We talked about at our first budget hearing, potentially reducing 2 teachers. And then it was decided at the next meeting only to reduce down to 1. And I'll explain that more.
Yeah,
afterwards.
please.
Okay. The other area of concern is the increased interest in our agricultural schools. Now, again, these are schools for our West Bridgewater students that we're proud to send them there. They're part of our program, but there's a financial cost to that.
So that's separate from the Southeast region. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So right now we have 6 students attending Norfolk Aggie. We're graduating 1, so we'll have 5 students budgeted for next year.
Okay,
We have 10 students who have applied to Norfolk and/or Bristol Aggie, but so some applied to both. So there's 10 independent applications. So that is a massive increase for us over the past few years. It's an increase of 324,000, which equates to 1.84%.
So
of
you
our
do the
overall budget.
transportation for those, the agriculture schools?
So we do.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we do transportation, collaborative transportation for Norfolk Aggie. If we have a student go to Bristol Aggie, we have to budget for transportation for that as well.
When do you find out that they're getting into the
They're
school?
starting to get in now.
Okay.
We're starting to get letters back. Some students are undecided, some are excited and will probably accept. Some students are waiting to hear from Southeastern to make a decision, so the acceptances are coming now. But I don't think they need to make a firm decision until probably later in April and May.
so they apply, but they don't necessarily go, they can make up their mind, so you
They
just,
can.
it's sort
Yeah,
of a
so
wild
it's
card.
like an unknown.
It
Yeah.
is an
It
unknown.
is, and traditionally, every student that has applied has been accepted and decided to go.
Okay.
So I
So
don't
you
think
have
they
a
apply
history.
lightly, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have had, we've been spot on with the budget every year.
I know some students on wait lists.
And you said last night, I think, that if by chance you don't need it, it goes back to the general fund.
Well, hopefully,
Right.
unless we have other issues that weren't covered in the budget. So
Okay.
if we receive significantly less
Sure.
circuit breaker funding or significantly less in the federal grants,
Gotcha.
then we may use that instead of coming to town and
Sure.
asking for more.
And the reality is, students can apply to both agricultural schools up until April 1st. We will have to allow them to apply, so the number is 10. It could increase at any point. We haven't seen any new applications, but the reality is it could
It's
happen.
an interesting trend, huh?
So did you budget as if everyone's going?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
15 students.
So this just shows you a little bit of the cost. These are the FY 23 to 25 are actual costs for tuition. This does not include transportation, and you can also see the amount. So Norfolk Aggie being $29,241, but if they are on an IEP, there is an additional cost. So it bumps up to about $36,000 per
And so
student.
of those 15, you know which ones, so you know how
Yes.
many to budget in that bucket?
It doesn't mean they couldn't qualify while they're there, but
Right.
we budget that amount
Yeah,
on top of
right.
for the students. You'll see Bristol has a similar number, but they do not have an extra amount for special education.
Mhm.
And we've also budgeted $30,000. We've been in contact with Bridgewater to do a collaborative transportation to Bristol if the student goes. So they'll show the costs. So these are just some of our key budget points we wanted to point out. There are no new positions added into this budget. This budget maintains 4 kindergarten teachers, the same as this year. This year we have 79 students enrolled in kindergarten. The census was low, this year's census is low for next year, so we're budgeting that. But again, it's budgeting with our fingers crossed, because kindergarten's not, it's different than another grade level. We know who's in school, or who may be at a private school. We don't know really who goes to private kindergarten, keeping them out or preschool, so it's kind of a shot in the dark. But we're confident for this budget. We're taking the chance.
So
we'll
the
stay
census
forward.
numbers from the town don't help you with that?
They help,
Oh,
but they're
okay.
not. But they're.
Yeah.
I don't think not everyone may
They're
complete
kind of
the
squishy,
census.
yeah. Okay.
So we are with the 79 students going into first grade. We're going to maintain 4 teachers. So we reduced our budget by 1 teacher for first grade. We're planning to right size. We're going to look at some of our other grade levels, potentially look at specialists, potentially look at middle senior high school staff to reduce down 1. And I wish I could tell you now what that is, but we've got quite a bit of time left for enrollments and grade level changes, or people moving into town or moving out. So it doesn't make sense to say it's going to be this grade or that grade or this position. But we recognize the need to right size the classroom. But that being said, we also want to recognize that at some point our kindergarten enrollments will be up. Our that first grade that's at 79, we may get kids move in over the next couple of years. We've got to go back up to 5 for that. So while we've appreciated being able to right size up to 5, we're trying to right size down. The reality is at some point we're probably going to have to go back up for those grade level positions.
I mean, you can get quite a few kids though and still keep the class pretty small, because if you have 80 over 4, that's 20 per.
Correct. Yep. If we get up to
Right.
100, we're at 25.
Yeah.
Looking at inclusion classrooms being a little bit smaller. So
Yeah.
there's certainly room.
Yeah.
And then also just the 2 other factors, the school choice and the agricultural increase.
I'm
Mark,
sorry.
does the state still want us to maintain between 22 and 25 kids?
Usually, yeah, that's a good number for
So
us.
there's not a lot of room to play games.
Yeah. It's 25 in the teacher's contract to strive for 25. I think it's best
The
for our
ideal
kids.
size with the state has always been 22.
Yeah, I think that's
Do some school districts have 30 or
They do.
more
Yeah.
kids?
they do,
Definitely.
unfortunately.
But it's more important in the younger,
Absolutely.
you know,
that's
years to
we
have-
want to focus on
Yeah.
Well, it's a different age group.
that.
Yeah.
So
and you need to pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
This just shows you where our summary of increases are. Our teaching services, which is always in every school budget going to be the largest percent, 46% of our overall budget, which is 2.72% of our increase. The agricultural schools this year, again, up 1.84% of our overall increase. It's 32% of the total. Our decrease in school choice, which would be in addition to our school contributions, and then other line items within the budget that are up or down.
So can I ask you about the I guess the vocational, and the agricultural? Do the students that go tend to sort of go into one primary program that we could consider adding to our school, or is that just not a?
They're a very specialized program, and they're very good programs.
Yeah.
And they meet the students' needs, so I don't think we could replicate that
Mhm.
within our school.
I mean,
to be
you'd have to
honest.
build a whole lot of infrastructure
Right.
for that.
Well,
to-
I was just wondering, sort of what they're gravitating towards, and if there was any potential there to, if
Well,
it's
I mean,
all
we do some
computers
robotics
or,
here.
I don't know.
Correct.
But it's not gonna be like
Not going
Won't
to
be
be
like
robotics
Southeastern.
over there, that's right.
No, absolutely. What we really need is an agricultural school in Plymouth County.
Yes.
I think that's
Yeah.
Exactly.
because again, we're not alone.
Right.
We're paying $29,000 per student, so
Yeah.
are other Plymouth counties,
Mhm.
cities and towns. In county, they're paying about $5,000.
Yep.
Mm,
So
mm.
now again, there's reasons for that. Their assessments and so forth. They probably paid more in other areas, but there's still a big discrepancy in
Right.
tuition. And this is might be just an anomaly year for us.
Mhm.
This just breaks it down a little bit more. It shows our overall total school budget at a little over 21 million. minus our school contributions, which shows the 18,609,946, which is what we're requesting, minus last year's appropriation. So we're a little bit over $1 million, which equates to a 5.83%. And we don't come lightly because it was our goal to be at 5 or below. That's what we were hoping for. I'll show you something about that in a minute. But again, it's all in the money, but looking at our school choice, if we could fully fund our school choice or fully take our 250, then our increase would be down to 5.26. If we had a normal year or an average year for our agricultural tuition and transportation, we'd be at, I believe, a very modest 3.42%.
So, can you speak a little bit to the thing that sort of sticks out to me when I look at the presentation from the vocational school? They show, sort of that $9.5 million level, and this budget is clearly double that. Is there like something you can speak to about
I'm not sure what the 9.5 million is.
So the what do they call that? The foundation budget, is that the right term? The foundation budget, they every year kind of budget to the foundation budget, but they're saying that the foundation budget for West Bridgewater would be $9.5 million. So I'm just wondering, that's a huge, that's double really what you're asking. So I just don't, I think it's helpful for people to understand the VOTEC is budgeting to their foundation budget, and ours is so much more. And
I honestly don't know. I don't know a lot about how the vocational budget. I don't have the experience with that.
Okay.
I don't. So I really can't answer that.
I can speak to the Chapter 70 formula. So when they calculate the foundation budget and they calculate net school spending and they look at vocational schools, there's a completely different formula for vocational schools. So if you look at Southeastern spending per pupil, they spend something like $25,000. So it's significantly more. They're spending almost $10,000 more per student, but they're still at their net school spending because they're receiving an amount from the state that represents what they need for the vocational school. Does that
So
make sense?
is it the state contribution is lower for regular schools than vocational schools? Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
That drives that variance?
I heard the number that she gave, and it seemed to be a pretty high number.
And they don't
To our
have the
Chapter
special
70
needs requirements over there either.
I think
Yes,
they
they
do.
do. They have
They
special
do.
needs
They
students,
do.
yes.
Yeah,
They
they
do.
definitely do.
But remember that she said that they can control the admissions right now. So they can be selected, and they are accepting children on IEPs. They do have special education there, but we have to educate everyone in West Bridgewater. We don't have a choice, whereas they can be selected with their admission.
How do they do that? Well, not that it matters that much here.
Well, over there,
How do they manipulate that though?
like a lottery. You put your
I
name
think
in.
they have,
Take an exam,
I think they have a
written
they have a
exam.
formula, and they have a.
Yeah, it's actually not a lottery. They have an application process, and the students who apply are assigned points based on their grades, their disciplinary record, their attendance, a recommendation from their guidance counselor, and an interview. So they're selecting students that score high,
Sure.
and so they're really selecting our best students, our students who, have no disciplinary record.
Right.
And so that's how they.
It's not no written exam to get in there though.
Nope.
But I
We have
know
about,
what you're
I
saying.
heard the question asked about how, I think we have about 40 students applying, and usually they'll accept about 20 into the program.
For the vocational school?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's
I'm
the
not
trend.
exactly sure the number, but
No, I mean, my daughter's in 8th grade. She's applying for 9th grade. So we're hoping to get into one of these schools. So,
again, these programs,
Very stressful.
both vocational and the agricultural programs are, great programs. They offer a lot that we frankly can't offer,
Yeah. But I think that trend's gonna go like that with the cost of college. I mean,
these school students are also
Driving
going off to
it.
school as well. It's a good opportunity for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
this was a rehearsal for college.
Again, this last slide just really shows where we've come. We are thankful to the town. We know we're a town department. We thank the town for their support of the school system over the years. As I said, it was our goal to be a little bit lower while still meeting the needs of our students and our staff and our community. We always want to balance that. We'll always fight for what we need. We won't ask for more than we need, but there's certain things that we need. And in this case, there's some things that are somewhat out of our control. Again, it's still in our budget, so we have to deal with it. But there's some bit of reality. There's some things we can't control that might be a bit abnormal for this year.
Okay. Any other questions on this budget?
Did you ever answer the questions I was asking about with the teachers and I know because when I went to the meeting with you guys had a lower budget number increase than you did.
Yeah, we can.
That's a good question. Oh, yeah, sorry if we didn't.
We can speak to that. So there's a couple of reasons. So I'll speak to two of the reasons. Kara can speak to a third.
Sorry, can you repeat Mo's question or what?
Oh, yes. So the question, and actually may have been, was it Mo or was it?
The
It was
one
Mo.
teacher.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the question was, in the original budget that Mark and Kathy presented, there was a reduction of 2 staff. And we decided as a committee that we wanted to add 1 staff position back in. Now, our reasoning for that, when we discussed it as a group, we kind of all had our different reasons. My primary reason is when we look at cuts, we always go to the elementary level. And I had asked Mark and Kathy when we had met to look at the high school level. So what can we cut at the high school level? And they honestly said to me, there's really nothing we can cut to maintain the programming at the high school. So for me, when the high school has so many more activities, so many more athletics kind of built in, I did not feel that we would be representing our children if we cut a position that then removes their art or their music, and that would be one of the things that would be on the table. So that was my first reason. My second reason would be, I think that Kathy has done a wonderful job with this budget, and we're nervous. We're nervous about federal funding. We're nervous about whether or not we have to pay for all 15 of those kids, and it would be really tight if we preemptively cut a position. And so I know Kara had spoken last night about the class sizes, right?
Yes. So, but partly to piggyback onto the specialists, a last minute cut that happened at the beginning of this fiscal year was that kindergartens lost their specials. So they receive phys ed, but they don't receive art, music, STEM, or health. And that was a last minute thing in response to needing to add a class size at the Howard School. So with the possibility of removing another specialist, there'd be no chance of bringing specials back to kindergarten in any capacity. And the teachers there are certainly welcome to thinking outside the box, and maybe they don't get every special every week, but maybe they get them on a rotating basis or an alternating basis. And maintaining the 4 class sizes in kindergarten would help that as a possibility. In addition, where the size of next year's kindergarten class is unknown, and we are optimistic that we can maintain the 4 classes, but not certain, if over the summer we realize kindergarten enrollment is up, then we need to add that 5th class to kindergarten. Where are we getting the money for that? If we've already preemptively cut a specialist, then what do we cut to add that kindergarten teacher?
So I'm a little confused by cuts last year. That budget was funded at what you requested. So why would there have been room to make a cut?
It was when they couldn't go to kindergarten because once we went to the 5 specialists across the board, there was no time in the specialist schedule to get to kindergarten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
we added another classroom
So
at the Howard
Correct.
School.
So our specialists at the elementary level, K through 6, are the same. It's the same art teacher for all 7 grades, and she travels between all of the schools. So in the 11th hour, I think it was August, when that 5th classroom at Howard was added, and they reworked the schedules, they looked at it and said that those specialists can no longer travel to kindergarten. There just are not enough hours in the day to service all or both elementaries plus spring, and still travel and have their prep and their lunch.
So, sorry, why did we have to add a 5th?
The enrollment just went up to a point where we were too
Enrollment
concerned.
in kindergarten?
No, in fifth grade.
Fifth grade.
Fifth grade. And the reality is what we're presenting is wishful, hopeful. We're reducing the first grade teacher for this year. We're not adding a kindergarten teacher. You know, a cut could come from a number of places, but it's not going to be a place that's not going to have some hurt. If it's high school, it wouldn't be a teacher because we can't just cut an English teacher. We would have to cut parts of different departments. We had to do that a couple of years ago. We had to send out RIF notices, reduction in force, to a number of different staff and say they may be reduced from a 1.0 to a 0.8.
Mhm.
I will tell you, it didn't have to happen, which was great, but it caused a lot of anxiety. It caused people to look for other jobs. So that would be, again, a potential. If we reduced any of the elementary grades from 5 to 4, we're automatically going to be at 24, 25 students in that class. Maybe 23 to 25, depending on the configuration. So I would love to say, all right, we're just going to cut something that, maybe it's an additional service provider, maybe it's a math coach or a reading coach or a literacy coach that's not directly servicing students every day. But anytime we're talking about any kind of reduction, it is a real person and it'll have a real effect on our students.
So how many people are retiring this year? 2? So you're planning to replace one of them and then not the other, essentially with this one reduction that you budgeted
It doesn't
for?
always
Is that
work exactly that way because they're in
Okay.
different departments.
okay? But essentially, from a sort of FTE perspective, that's kind of how it'll work.
Well, yeah, we're going to be reducing one. And in the teaching line.
The retirements don't reduce FTEs because you have to fill the clients that are retiring.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking though. Like
So
who? Yeah.
that doesn't.
But it's usually filled with less of a salary as well.
Right, a lower salary.
And we
Yeah.
took that into account.
Okay.
I went through the budget carefully, as I always do. I thought it was really sharp pencil budget, to your credit. The only thing caught my eye, of course, is sped services and sped teaching services that went up a great deal. I wonder if someone could speak.
So-
I think it's aides. I think
No,
it's
the
teacher
sped
aides.
services went up 40% if you're looking at the top.
Yeah.
Because in the previous year, we were able to use $175,000 of circuit breaker funding to offset that sped services line. This year, we're only applying $45,000 of circuit breaker funding to offset that line.
So there's no change in salaries or
I mean,
hourly
there's
rates?
minimal,
or-
just contractual salary.
Even for the aides? It's
Yeah, part of-
contractual?
part of the market.
I didn't know that.
There's no additional
Yeah.
people or anything, it's just.
And is the behavioral tech, there's a little line on behavioral techs and a supervisor. That's not new, is it?
No, behavior tax we've added over the years.
And the supervisors, like, I don't know, master's or PhD position?
The CBA position?
Yes,
Oh,
that's,
yes.
yeah. We've always had that?
That was added a couple years ago.
Couple of years.
Couple of years, okay, gotcha.
Yes, that's been a while.
Well, here's what it is. As
Well,
they
again,
say.
thank you. We appreciate the opportunity and the time to talk. If there are more questions, please let us know.
Yeah, no, we appreciate
Thank
it.
you for your understanding.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
I like the iPad. Thank you for the donation.
Oh, you're welcome. It's not much. It's not much. Hopefully it helps. All right, my friend, I think you're back on the hook. Do you want to do the moderator?
Sure.
Everybody have a moderator? 11:40.
You don't?
No.
Town hall.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
I just want to make sure everybody's good.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Mary, you good?
I'm trying to be.
It's a lot of pages.
Mo, you looking too?
I'll find them.
Yeah, it was at the end
Got
of
more
the,
piles here.
yeah, it was at the end of the school.
It was at the end of the school.
And all those, all the smaller budgets will be at the end.
Yeah, they were at the bottom. I don't know how you shuffled your deck there.
I'll find it for you.
Okay.
Found it. Did I find it before you again, Jim? Probably.
I'm not even looking for it.
Oh,
So I'm way ahead of you.
I write notes on the first page and then I never look at it later. We've already been here, you know.
So,
Okay.
yeah, the moderator budget's just level, I mean, it's not, it's a small budget,
Thank you.
so that's level funded. And, which one?
Sealer of weights and measures, 2440.
Yep, so that basically stays the same across the board except for the increase in salary. Other than that, everything else is the same.
Okay. Veterans,
So veterans, I provided an additional sheet that I want you to review as well, because I want to make sure that everybody understands exactly what we're doing. So, we have two people that serve in the Veterans Office. One that works 14 hours a week as a part-time secretary, and the other person who is our Veteran Services agent who doesn't use or work office hours. So we pay both of those people. We are required by law to have a Veteran Services officer. We are not required by law to have a clerical person. So we've done the analysis because, again, we have to be careful with the money and try to do the right thing. Is that you will see in the sheet that I provided you that over 4 years, Chapter 115, which is direct cash payments to veterans, we have not had a person qualified. This is not a reflection of anything that the office is doing that's bad or good. It's just that because there are income and other requirements, is that nobody is qualified for any of those programs. In addition, there's other cash programs that they can qualify for that are a little bit different in nature. But between those two, over 4 years, we have paid out $1,400. Obviously not a lot of money. However, over those 4 years, we paid $101,000 in administrative staff time, and we've also paid almost $40,000 in a veteran services stipend. So it's just not economical to pay $140,000 if that's all the services that we're providing. Now, I want to be careful because the secretary is still providing assistance. For example, someone has a question, how do I do this? Where do I go? Where do I reach out to? She is still doing that. But that really is the responsibility of the Veteran Services Officer to do. And the VSO, for short, has been not here. We've been relying on the clerical person. So we have to make a change in this office. We have met with the department, and we've also met with the union, and the board, and the chairman was with me when we did that. I'm not saying everybody's happy, because nobody's happy, but it's the reality of what we have to look at. So we also want to be careful because we're not looking to reduce any services or potential services to veterans. All we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, because the statute requires a Veteran Services Officer, Mr. VSO, or in the future, Miss VSO, you are now going to be required to be in the office 14 hours a week. Instead of having a secretary do it, you're going to have to do it. So you're going to have to be the one that's there, answer the calls, answer the emails, give out your cell phone number, and return those calls. In addition to that, even though we're looking to reduce this line for clerical, we are not reducing $1 from the amount of available benefits in the budget. We have been budgeting at $25,000 every year. Obviously, we have not spent it, but we always want to make sure we have money there in case a veteran needs it. So if somebody qualifies, we have that access of resources. So there is no level of lack of benefits going to a veteran if they so qualify.
Place it's supposed to go to. Right.
The other part that I want you to know in full disclosure is that it is a little bit unfair because from the state standpoint, a municipality that is under 10,000 in population, that Veteran Services Officer can no longer be accredited or certified. Can't tell you why. I think it's a silly law, but unfortunately that's what they have changed for the rule, which means that if you're a veteran and you qualify for benefits that a accredited VSO must sign off on, you have to go to another municipality. So if you look at the door actually posts to go to Brockton, if necessary. So we're not purposely, the secretary is not purposely sending people elsewhere. It's just that we can't handle those applications. Only somebody else can. And I think, quite frankly, it's unfair to East Bridgewater and Brockton, who's actually handling those claims for us. So for those reasons, the purpose of the actual Veteran Services Officer, he should be here, and be able to provide direct answer, Q&A, and assistance and all that stuff. Still have the money funded, so we can still provide the services. Still be able to direct that veteran to another municipality if so needed. But we just can't carry two people to do that. So, so with that said, you'll see that there's a reduction in that budget, because that's what it represents.
Do we ever know on a yearly basis how many veterans go to that office and
I don't have the
ask
number.
questions?
I don't have that number. I do know there's about 700 veterans in town.
Huh?
So I know, there's no doubt that that secretary is probably handling some calls or emails or whatever, from some of them. Clearly not all 700.
Oh, that's
But, you know, if 10% of them are making a call during the course of the year, I don't know the number. But if they are, then that just now the Veteran Services Officer, who is required by law to be,
Yeah.
that's the person that should be making those
Paying
contacts.
someone who's never there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure everybody fully understands.
Sure.
In no way should this have an impact on actually veterans.
Right.
Okay. Let's see. I think next is insurance.
So insurance,
1930.
yep, so insurance is your property insurance and your general liability insurance. I carry high deductibles with it because quite frankly, I think our insurance is actually relatively cheap. This covers all municipal buildings in town and all employees in town, excluding the water department. Maria, you good?
I'll find it.
Okay. So this carries all of them. Again, I will backfill the water department as necessary. I have budgeted 5%. We have not been rated. I don't know what that final number is. I'll have to plug it in a couple of weeks.
We haven't had any major accidents or anything, right?
Well, I mean, we've had some claims in both the, we've had some claims.
Okay.
Okay. I think
Correct.
next one I have is Board of Selectmen 1220.
So Board of Selectmen budget is up a little over 4%. There are 4 lines in there that change. Everything else is state level funded.
Okay.
The first 3 lines that have changed are all contractual. And the other line that changed is for the auditor services. Our auditing services, we always do a 3-year contract. And, we compare it to other towns. And so the Board of Selectmen just recently re-signed a new 3-year contract. So that represents that difference.
Okay. Finance Committee.
Finance Committee, I just level funded at 3,100, same year over year.
Okay. Reserve Fund.
Same 67,000 again. I think our department heads have done a very good job. We have not had to do a transfer in a number of years out of that account. You'll recall that this committee here will vote on end of year transfers because we'll transfer from another budget if we have to. But for unforeseen and extraordinary expenses, we carry this as a just in case budget, which is allowed by law.
We
And,
haven't used it for a while.
We have not used it for a while, but I do think,
Sorry.
again, you're looking at probably about a $48 to $49 million budget this year.
Yeah.
So 67,000 is not a lot.
I carry a lot.
But again, if something happens, we should have it.
Okay. Any question on any of those budgets that we just went through rather quickly?
Nope.
Okay. And then I think the last thing we have is the capital
Did we do the
budget.
historic commission?
We did. But I can go over it again if you
I know,
need.
that's okay. I'm sorry. I must have dozed off.
It was level funded at 17.
Level funded, yeah.
So I can-
Okay.
So capital budget, you have a couple of members on this committee that were on that committee.
Yep, so Cheryl.
Cheryl, and
Jim and who else, Ben?
Chris.
Chris, okay.
So there was two meetings. There was one meeting where people made requests, and the next meeting where the committee, they spent a week to be able to digest it, look at it, research it, ask questions, and then revisit it. So everything is before you. Since I have been here, I've used this term, but one of my doctrines has been, when I present a budget to the Board of Selectmen for their approval, is that we try to use free cash wherever we can, so we're not carrying debt. And our debt load is much lower now than it was 12 years ago. So, so you'll see on the town side, there's a total of $1.3 million of requests. In all of those, we would be looking to use free cash. Our free cash certification was about $3 million this year. So we have the money to be able to spend it, meaning that we can afford it. And so those are the requests. I will tell you that you'll actually be voting on them at a later date this year. I just place it on here so that way you can see it, and that way you know, because that way it gives you guys all a couple of weeks as well in case you have additional questions. The water department had two requests, and so one of theirs is for $113,000. That will come out of, they call it water surplus. That's the equivalent of free cash, meaning money left over or money that came in that was unexpected. And the large one is $6 million towards the water treatment plant. That is not a new water treatment plant. Now, water treatment plant for $10 million was approved last year at town meeting. They went out to bid, and when they went out to bid, the lowest pricing that came in was over $16 million. So that's why they're looking for the additional $6 million to make up the gap or the difference. That would be borrowing, like the other one. There's no way we could pay cash for that one.
And that's Sear Street, right?
That is Sear Street. That is incorrect. That is entirely correct.
And this also adds a little space on the building
Yeah.
to future allow for PFAS remediation.
Okay. Anything, folks that went to the detailed discussion that you wanted to add to this or inform the committee about?
I was happy with everything, the way it was presented, and I was glad that David had given us the heads up on how much money we had to spend. And I'm also happy that everything that was voted on was voted to go through with. Some of the stuff is absolutely necessary. What are you gonna do?
That's right.
You know?
2 cruises instead of 1.
2 cruises, because I didn't get one a while ago. I can't remember.
Yeah, so
And
One was to replace a sedan that was
it's at the end of
like
its line.
15 years old. Yeah.
I thought we did like a cruiser every year.
We did, but sometimes they get 2, and so be it. We gonna tell the police they have to ride their bike? Yeah.
We have those too.
Huh?
We have bikes.
And
Police
motorcycles.
bikes, yeah.
But Jim's correct. So usually what happens is to try to keep the lineup fresh every 5 to 6 years, is that you replace 1 and then 2. So we cycle through.
Oh, I see.
But 1 year we only did 1 instead of 2 because we were just trying to be a little bit, we had to be conservative
We're
that
trying to
year.
catch up.
But unfortunately, that does mean that it creates where you need to add 2 this year.
Okay.
One item of note, Linda in my office really does she does an excellent job of always trying to chase areas of which we can save money. For example, all of our trade-ins, when we go to buy a car, we get a trade-in number.
Yeah.
So we know the minimum that we can get, but we don't trade it in, we put it online and auction it. If we get a higher auction price, we sell it. If we don't, we trade it, right? The other thing that she does is if she can find programs that are out there, she looks for those as well. So the district attorney's office this year is running a program where if you do a 2-hour training class on the use of defibrillators and CPR programs, that they will provide you a no-cost defibrillator. So Linda has signed up classes for the town hall, the DPW, and the Council on Aging. Everybody will go to a 2-hour class over the next 60 days. And the defibrillators that we have that have now aged out and are expired, we will now replace those at no charge. The school department was unaware of that program, so when it came to capital budget, we informed them. There are 4 in there. So Mark has reached out we are going to have them try to secure 4 additional classes, and if so, then we will save that $15,000. We may not know over the next 2 weeks because it depends on availability of time. Worst case is come town meeting, we should have an answer by May, and if we do, we won't move it.
Okay.
And if for whatever reason we didn't have an answer and we approve it at town meeting, I mean, nobody's gonna vote no to say you have to have expired defibrillators in a school.
Right.
And if we can go for those programs, then that money doesn't get spent and it falls to free cash the following year. But I want to give you, between Linda and the school, they're looking to be able to save that $15,000.
Yeah, that's great.
Tasers. How many tasers?
So it is 10 guns,
10 tasers,
but it's a total of 20.
batteries.
Correct.
Oh, no
but it's
kidding.
everything.
Oh,
Everything's
really?
brand new because according to the chief, they're all too old to have the new style stuff work on the old stuff.
Oh, I thought you meant
Parts.
the people were too old. You mean the equipment's too old?
Equipment's too old.
Oh, God.
Parts out of date.
People don't get too old.
You're right.
They still get zapped when it comes time.
Well, I was only asking for personal reasons.
We could try one on you if you'd like.
Well,
Well,
I've got
make sure
someone-
we use the old one on you, Meredith.
They each have their own battery,
Yeah.
and each police officer is responsible for his battery to charge it, correct?
Correct, because the data gets stored, so that way if there's an investigation,
In the
or what,
battery.
correct.
What kind of info would be stored?
If you get
Who they
zapped,
paid
The
them.
time,
Yeah,
the
every-
date,
Oh, like
location.
your DNA?
no,
No, it's
No.
for police officers to have it recorded, like their
Like their
body.
We asked that,
Yeah.
we're not sure.
So-
And so the battery
Probably
belongs to
not
the
gonna
police
tell you.
officer,
No,
so
really,
nobody
I don't
else
think
can
they can
use
reveal
that
that.
but him, and the data belongs to things that he's done,
Oh,
yeah.
like-
So all use
Oh,
of,
that's interesting.
all use of force, especially after the post regulations now have to be documented. And so if somebody discharges their weapon, whether it's a taser or a different weapon, all of that information now has to go into a report. The taser has the ability to be able to download the document. You can't download it from a shotgun,
Amazing.
but you can download it from a taser. So therefore, as a result, each one of them is pre-described to an officer, so that way that person, that data is specific to that officer if they have to unfortunately engage it, or engage the use of it. But they're over 10 years, again, there's end of life for them, and so they have to be updated.
They had hoped to get, it was supposed to be a pool of things that they were supposed to be able to get to, and it went away, the opportunity left.
Oh,
So they are
right.
getting, the state of the art, which is the best thing for our department.
You mean
That's
a
awesome.
grant that they didn't get, or? what do you
No,
mean?
no, when they were looking for tasers, they were assured that there was this pool of tasers that was available, and when they went to go look for the tasers when they needed them, they were gone. So
Oh,
they
I
were-
see.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or discussion on the, capital budget items? Okay, what else do we have here? The bylaw, the finance committee bylaw.
So we went over this last time. Here's the language that's in front of you. I worked on the language with Jan, with Jason, the moderator, and also with Annie, and also presented to the Board of Selectmen last night. So basically what you'll see is that we would be looking to remove a subcommittee of the existence of a subcommittee, and then we would instead create a formal appointment committee that would be made up of the Board of Selectmen, the moderator, and the town clerk. The other item that we thought was important was that you'll recall that you do end-of-year transfers usually in July or August. If you follow the strict reading of the bylaw, which nobody's ever followed, but if you did the 60-day appointment and you did all those things, you could be having a new board or 3 new members of the finance committee voting on a transfer on a budget that they didn't know
That
anything
they
about.
didn't know anything, yeah.
And that doesn't make sense. So what we've done is that we said, okay, let's do it this way. You have annual town meeting, allow the committee to stay as its committee until September 30th. We'll put all terms starting on October 1st, because again, that was one of the things we raised last time. Everybody in this room has no idea when their term officially started and what date actually officially ends. All you know is it's 3 years, but a year is 365 days long. So we want to clean that up. And we're thinking that if we do it in the month of September, then we can give ample notice. People will fill out their volunteer forms. Now the meeting is on TV. There's an open meeting law that we can follow the open meeting law. Everything is posted. Everyone knows exactly what's going on. Everybody will be contacted prior to and after the meeting. And if we make the appointment in September, then it would become effective October 1st. And now you would sit for 3 years. And then that way on the back end, the committee that sits in session during the summer, if you're doing end of year transfers, it is the same committee that was at town meeting and went through the budget season. So we think we captured it. Obviously if there's questions or what, we'll look at it, but we think that this is gonna be fair to all parties, the appointment process, the people applying.
Yeah, I like the transparency. I like the start and end and the expectations of, you have to complete a volunteer application because that's really sort of ebbed and flowed. And I just think this is much easier for people to know what's going to happen, to be able to apply if they want to apply and all of that jazz.
Certainly lessens all the confusion.
Yeah, I agree.
So on the volunteer application, does it reference that you have to file or submit a resume and a cover letter?
We don't.
That's kind of wishy-washy, or at least it was when I kind of did stuff.
Correct. And that was part of the issue with the subcommittee because it was different people every year.
Mm-hmm.
And so they wanted to have different qualifications.
Sure.
So the selectmen make 99.9% of all appointments in town, just the 3 of them. This year would be 5. But in those cases, we just look for a volunteer form. We don't look for anything else above and beyond.
Okay.
Now, if people want to attach it to make their case stronger, well, you could encourage them and then
It's
we're welcome
voluntary.
to do it. But it's a volunteer. I mean, this is a volunteer committee. People that apply to the zoning board of appeals or they apply to conservation, they just turn in a volunteer form.
Mhm.
That's all, just so the volunteer form has been updated, because I believe it said something on it about a resume.
So we can look at it.
Mm.
But I mean, we've followed the same process for years. So there should be no reason for this to be different.
Yeah.
Just
I think so. I
have
agree.
consistency across the board.
Perfect.
Questions, comments?
Sounds a lot simpler.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yep,
Makes
so
sense.
Do we have to vote on this or?
your choice. So from a process standpoint, is that the Board of Selectmen will be the sponsor of it, so they will move it at town meeting. But Jason has also said the reason, and so Jason's going to retain as moderator at the meeting, but he would also like to speak in favor of it. And if he moved it, if he was the sponsor, he couldn't be the moderator at the same time. So then that would just create confusion. And so with that said, the selectmen will sponsor it. But I do think it's important, whether you do it today or we do it when we do the warrant articles, is that you would take a vote, because eventually you're going to have to take a vote.
Okay.
And usually on bylaw changes, many times you will say refer to voters, but in this case, it affects your committee.
Yeah.
And I'm very sensitive to that because, for example, when Mary just got reappointed, the committee never actually let Jan know.
Nope.
So Jan was in touch with me to say, well, what happened? And she wouldn't have known to reach out to you. So this has a direct impact to make sure that.
Total disconnect.
Yeah,
It
it's unfair. It was
yeah,
unfair to
there was
Mary,
no
it was unfair to
communication.
Jan.
I feel
And-
really bad for Scott.
Yeah, there
look
was
at-
no communication.
It was
40
not- I didn't, it was clear I was chosen because I was there.
Correct.
There was nothing better or worse for either one of us.
Mm.
And they thought someone else was going to be attending on his behalf. So yeah, it was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Correct. So you're right. Because right before the first finance committee meeting, I spoke to Scott, and Scott still thought he was on the committee.
Yeah.
And that was 2 months later after the vote.
Yeah.
That's not cool.
So with that said, we want to be fair to everybody. The subcommittee did the best that they could. Again, they're not involved.
Yeah.
And you only meet, think of 5 people who sometimes didn't know anybody, sit there for the first time and say, okay, what do we do?
Yeah.
Like, it's unfair to them. They didn't do anything wrong. They did the best that they could.
Yeah.
So with that said, it does have an impact on this committee, just from a communication standpoint. So I think it would be best for the town know whether or not you support it or you don't support it. It sounds like at least a
So
majority.
would we vote to recommend it to the town?
Correct, you would vote to
or-
recommend it.
Yeah.
Or vote not to recommend it.
Yeah.
But seemingly that most people are in favor, all of you are in favor, you would vote to recommend. So you can either do that this evening, or you can do it whenever you go through your warrant articles. The only thing is that when I place I'm gonna place all the warrant articles before the selectmen on April 2nd, and they will place it on the warrant. They have to take a vote. I want to inform them that I brought it to the committee, we had the conversation, and I think out of fairness to them, is inform them that the committee is in favor or not in favor. But, I mean, I'm just getting the general sense
let's
of
do
it.
the
Yeah, I mean,
Your
are folks
choice.
okay voting tonight?
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
we're here.
Who's coming up?
Absolutely.
I know,
Well, it's not about anything about who's coming up, it's about kind of the.
The process.
Creating a
Process.
process with
Right?
fairness
That's
and
what we're voting on,
transparency.
right?
I
It's just
think-
that language.
I think my term's up. I have to check to see who's
I
coming
know,
up.
Mama.
Okay.
I just got on. I didn't know if anyone knew.
So you're good.
I think I'm good.
All right, so do we have a motion, on this,
I'd like to
bylaw
make a
change?
motion to recommend to town meeting the change in the bylaw. Is that sufficient?
As
As
presented.
Okay.
As presented.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
I missed who seconded. Chris? Okay. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay.
Where do I find out where my term expires?
It'd be the
When
town
do you want
clerk.
it?
Annie has it.
Annie has it?
Yeah, I can,
Annie, or you can ask,
I can reach out to her if you want and bring it
I'll
next
just send
week
it to
or,
you.
Okay.
okay.
Mind just get, put a list together for all this.
When do I expire? That's a terrible question. If I knew, I'd spend all my money right now.
Oh gosh, it's the part of tax season when we start the Deadpool conversations.
Okay, I think we got through everything.
Well,
Not too bad. Not too bad. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
so we having another meeting?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
When's the next one? April
Yes,
3rd?
It's April 3rd.
April
So
3rd?
at your next, you have now heard all of your budgets. You have heard every budget hearing. So at your next budget, I will present the night before on that Wednesday, I will present a balanced budget to the selectmen. The selectmen then will vote on that budget, and then I will present that budget to you, of which you will then vote on that budget, which will be your recommendation to town meeting.
That's April 3rd
That is April 3rd,
at same time, 6:30.
yes.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Thank
Second.
you. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We are out.